couple of weeks ago, I was going to talk a little bit about satchitananda. It's a Sanskrit expression, and I ended up going a different direction, but I thought maybe I'd touch upon that this morning. The satchitananda translates, my understanding of it, translates as ever existent, ever conscious, ever new bliss. And it sort of sums things up. Sums up, you could say, in a very simple way, the nature of what's here. Sat, ever existent. This is always here. Reality is always here. Reality always is. The moment always is. And it's so clear that this beingness, sat, in that term satchitananda, is effortless, isn't it? We're not, and we can so easily fall into the trap of trying to make something happen when it comes to spiritual investigation and practice and so on. And meanwhile, here this is, this beingness, the beingness of the moment, the beingness that's felt, isn't it? Being felt as everything. The beingness of what's here is just here, isn't it? It's just being given. The engine of beingness is running. No matter no matter if we're applying anything we might call effort or not, here it is. Here is the beingness. Just feel that. You are feeling that. We are feeling the beingness of everything. It's just like a gentle, yet very powerful at the same time, stream of being. A stream of being that is not of our making. It's being us, being everything we might think of as ourselves. Everything that's arising, being. All that arises experientially, being. Thoughts, feelings, sensations, memories, images. All of it is being, isn't it? All of it is. Just feel that effortless streaming forth of being. Sat. It's relentless, the being. It's certainly in flux. The stream is not always looking the same, is it? It's not always showing up the same, the beingness. But it's always being. As far as the eye can see, being. If you feel the beingness that's here, that we might think of as the beingness of I am, this beingness that's here effortlessly. And then I'm hearing birds right now singing. There's the beingness of the birds that's here effortlessly. And it really is just one beingness. Like I can't not find where the beingness of self or the beingness of I comes to some sort of end point, and the beingness of the birds, the beingness of anything else that I might think of as distinct from I. It's just absolutely seamless edgeless beingness. That's simply here. It's here long before we do anything to notice it. It's just here. It's in the very first step, you might say, that we take to notice it, isn't it? That very first step is the beingness. So we might imagine we're going somewhere to find the beingness, but the entire process of looking for beingness, locating beingness, every single part of that is beingness, is the beingness, is existence, life. If your eyes are closed and you open your eyes and you see in the visual field is, this is the beingness as what we would call the visual field. And again, the beingness of that and the beingness of the observer of that so-called visual field, the observer is indistinguishable in a sense. It's very paradoxical. We have some sense of the observer being distinguishable from the observed. But the beingness of the observer and the beingness of that which is being observed, again, is a single expanse, isn't it? This expanse of beingness. Everywhere we go, everywhere we look, everything we discover perceptually, visually, auditorially, sensorially, everywhere we go, we meet the beingness, don't we? That's what we find, the beingness, everywhere. Every person, place, and thing we encounter is the beingness. All of it here just somehow, how is this here? Inexplicably, this beingness, this engine of beingness that's purring away. We never did anything to turn the ignition on for this engine. It's just running. You can't go back anyway, and then you can't go back to something before, which is really curious, to find the beginning of this beingness, can you? We can never find the beginning of it. It's just here, immediate. And the beingness sought is really inseparable from chit, consciousness. The knowing and the being are one thing. The knowing is, and the beingness is known. They're one thing. Sat and chit, ever existent, ever conscious. So just as everywhere we go, we find the beingness, everywhere we go, we find consciousness, don't we? We find the knowing of whatever it is that's there, whatever it is that's appearing. The appearance and the knowing of the appearance are one thing. We talk about them like something appears and then there's awareness of that which appears. But the world appears because it is known. The world appears because there is this function, we could say, of the universe, of consciousness. Consciousness is just here effortlessly. How much practice does it take to be conscious? It's just being given to us, just like being. We already are, and we already are conscious, and those are essentially like synonyms, being and consciousness. You just feel that. Feel the inescapability of being and consciousness. Where are they absent? If you find their absence, you've found their presence. Right? Because you found something, calling the absence of being or the absence of consciousness, and there is being and consciousness, right? That's how they're not absent ever. Where are they absent? You can't really find them in that sense because they've never been lost. There's been an imagination of having lost being and consciousness somehow. And that imagination is being and consciousness too, isn't it? We're so focused, kind of just as a rule, sort of habitually, to what the beingness looks like, how it's appearing, right? What's showing up, and what do I think of that? Is it okay? Is it the beingness? Is what showing up, is that consciousness? Is that what I'm looking for? Is that the freedom I'm searching for? Is that the vitality and the openness and the love and the... But all of that is found just in the pure beingness itself, not in how the beingness seems to be looking, because all of it is beingness, no matter how it's looking. No matter what consciousness is revealing, there is the consciousness, the beingness, sat chit. So we really can just simply relax and enjoy that this is being given effortlessly. And that what we are, whatever we might be, is that beingness giving rise to everything we imagine to be ourselves, inseparable from the beingness. I always heard the Ananda part is translated as ever new joy when I first was introduced to the term. I don't know Sanskrit, so I don't know what the correct, if you will, translation is, but we'll go with ever new joy. Sounds good. Ever new, this is the nature of, as we often explore here in the meetings, how it is always new, always fresh, isn't it? This moment is new. It's fresh. It doesn't repeat itself. It's just a constant refreshing of the instant, ever new. Amazing, isn't it? This instant, that the flavor of this moment that we've never encountered before. I mean, we can reference back to memory, sort of compare, which consciousness does. It sort of compares what's here with what it imagines was, and then we arrive at a conclusion of what it is based on memory, really, right? But we can never experience anything other than what's right here. And yet it doesn't stand still. It doesn't stay in place. It's a stream, right? We can feel it in that way. It is certainly one way to feel the moment, is its dynamism, it's streaming. And in the streaming, it's always new, it's always fresh. It's like being born anew in every instant. Everything past completely let go of, whatever the past might be, gone, forgiven, released. And that is effortless, isn't it? The release of what was is what life does. Is it, in a sense, in its rebirthing in every instant, it's releasing its prior, you could say, shedding its prior form. Amazing, the unfindability of what was. Where is it? It's not here. This is here, this fresh, ever new, streaming forth of being and consciousness, and all the myriad forms that beingness can take, and the myriad flavors that consciousness can assume. And the joy part, I think there's many different sort of ways to understand that, but we have to discover this for ourselves. But to feel the difference of orienting to what's here in terms of the content of it and the description of it, and sometimes that content, not infrequently, the way it's being described is in what you could call, negative terms, if it's difficult, challenging, and so on. To feel what's appearing, the beingness, as beingness, rather than merely however the beingness is being described. We touch, you could say, what's so most basic about it and fundamental is just its pure presence, its pure existence, its pure beingness, the pure beingness of everything. And again, this is to be discovered. I mean, talk about it is just to talk about it, but to discover the way in which those appearances that we've typically associated with lack somehow, with problem, with difficulty, with affliction, to feel the beingness of them that underlies them, that is their basis, that is their identity, in a sense, is their beingness, their fundamental identity. To feel the beingness of even those difficult moments we define as more difficult is to discover we could say, their joyful nature, their underlying beneficial nature. That something in the streaming itself, the streaming forth of this life force, this beingness, this consciousness, this relentless streaming forth is itself beneficial. The flow itself is beneficial. That's the ananda, the intrinsic benefit of reality itself. It's intrinsic benevolence, pure energy, pure intelligence, pure consciousness, this streaming forth, isn't it? No matter how it's looking, no matter how it's showing up. And it's never absent. This streaming forth is never absent. It is what is present, is the streaming forth, isn't it? Always. And it's not because it's something that we're doing to make it stream forth. That is the nature of it, is to stream forth. The nature of life is to be here in this way. Apparently, here it is, being its magnificent, inexplicable, mysterious nature. This spontaneous streaming forth, the beingness consciousness streaming forth, is, as I said, pure benefit, is pure. There's an easefulness, there's a smoothness to this flow. The hum of being. No matter what the tune is that's playing, it's the hum of being. The music, you could say, that's playing, the music of life, the beingness. Song that's being sung always. Satchitananda, always here, always being, always conscious, ever new, joy and ease and harmony in its very nature. It's intrinsically harmonized because it is everything. So it, of course, is in harmony with everything. It is everything. It's not like taking two things and trying to harmonize them. It's just one thing in harmony with itself.